This DJNTV show is sponsored by DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Pro, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, JMOZ Lighting, Instant DJ Requests, and our DJNTV Insiders. This is John Young from DJNTV. Thanks for watching.
Welcome, everybody. It is Monday night. We are here. We are ready. We are excited. Well, I'm excited.
Toga. No.
Toga?
Toga?
Now I'm scared.
No way.
I was excited. Now I'm scared.
I'm just going to stand back and watch that because no matter how it turns out, it's going to be entertaining.
I don't want to watch John in a toga. I'm sorry, John. I like you and all,
but not so much a toga.
No.
Okay, fine. That's fine.
No. But no, I'm excited. We are here. Last Monday was the virtual training night. A little plug. If you did not get a chance to check it out, go back and do so. I did not get a chance to join live that night, so I do want to give a quick thank you to everybody who was a part of that, from the DJX as well as those who did their interviews with me and everything. Thank you very much for being a part of it. And to those of you that watched, thank you for that.
Yeah, we had some really, really good numbers and a lot of good feedback on last week's show. So that was a little different style for us in what we did last week. And I think that's something we're going to try to incorporate a little bit more, getting more voices on and more faces, I guess, on those shows. So that was good. Very good. Yeah. Got the chat. We got folks coming in, Mike and Steve and Robin. Thank you guys for joining us. So far, they've made the ones making comments, and we've got a few more there that haven't made it. Howie's with us. Thank you for being with. So tonight, guys, I wanted to kind of talk about a topic that Dan you threw out, and kind of give us Dan the background of where you saw this, how it caught your eye, and became something that we were going to hit tonight.
So basically, what ended up happening, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I happened to come across Mike Walter, one of his posts that he had put. And I don't even remember what the initial one was, but you know how Facebook sometimes will give you a couple extra comments that are underneath. And I happened to catch one of those, and the comments started going in a really kind of deep direction, where this idea of at some point somewhere down the road, all right, most of us are probably going to retire. It is very unlikely that we will continue this business until we get taken away. Right? At some point, we're probably going to step away. And so with that in mind, it becomes this question of how do we deal with that? Because this, as a business, this is very ego-driven, right? Mm-hmm. Most people do this probably for one, I know, Jay, one of two reasons. I said most people, I didn't say all, but most people do this for one of two reasons: money, or stroking their ego, or a third one, which is both. And so what ends up happening is we step away, we'll take away the money aspect out of that, but you no longer have the people coming up to you and telling you, oh my gosh, you're the best thing ever. How we as a person then kind of go on. And also, for a lot of us, and again, not everybody, but for a lot of us, we get into this state of constantly associating ourselves as a DJ. Like that becomes our identity, right? I am DJ Dan, or I'm DJ DC a lot of times to people. And so as a result, we become that piece. And so if we no longer have that piece, how do we cope with our own identity?
Sure.
Right? How do we cope with that piece? So that was kind of where this came from, this idea of really tracking down and being comfortable with no longer being who we're known as.
Mm-hmm.
Not no longer being who we are, but no longer being who we're known as.
Yeah. And for those of you who follow Mike Walter's posts, he does this on a semi-regular basis. Is he'll take, he's one of these guys who will, throw a grenade into a room and then see what happens. And I think that was one of those threads. Is he basically made a statement, and he knowing that it was going to get, and ironically, the statement initially and where this went in this part of the thread were completely different. And it was a good eye-opening discussion that they continued on from that. So, yeah, I thought that would be a great topic for tonight to really dig into that, because I think a lot of us are getting to that point where we're going to be needing to look beyond. And it's actually something, there's 4 or 5 DJs that I talk to on a regular basis that are younger than all of us. And it's like starting to talk to them about that process of what comes after. You're successful, you're doing things right now, but now you're getting married. Now you're starting a family. And what you're doing today is not going to be what you're doing. You're not going to be able to do what you do in 5 years, what you're doing today. It just doesn't work anymore. Once you have all these things together in your world, now you have to look at what's next and transition there, and then transition again and transition again. So it's something that I think anybody over the age of 25 is really going to be looking at here at some point in time in the future. Okay. So MJ, your thoughts when it comes to how much the DJ world, as far as the DJs in this industry, identify as DJs, that's probably the most important part of their identity.
Say that again.
DJs, you run into a lot of club guys in your market. How many of them, basically, if you would take the DJ away from them, how important is that to their identity? To the point, if you would say you're no longer a DJ, they would be lost, walking in circles, possibly even to the point of being a huge detriment to themselves.
From my experience, it has surprised me how many DJs that I thought were all about that walked away clean. I had friends here in the city who competed in DJ competitions, graduated from college with their masters, and have never DJ'd since.
Wow.
Another person was a policeman, and he met a girl, moved out of state, and that's all he did was be a policeman and a husband and a father. That's it. So it's how do I say this? People come and go with it. Mm-hmm. So you will have seasons. Another friend of mine walked away for 7 years, and now he's back doing stuff and doing weddings and doing little gigs here and there. Works a day job.
Sure.
So it's as many as I would have said before those examples came into my life, but like, oh, they don't even know what to do if what happens. Most of them, I think to them, it is partially something they love and partially part of who they are, but I don't think the percentage that gets crushed by that loss, that identity, I think is small.
Now, one question I have, when you're thinking about those examples that you used, how long were they in the business? I mean, were these mid to late 20s? Were these mid to late 30s?
30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was just
they
like
walk
one of the
away
things
for a while. Like I said, I've seen people walk away for a while, and I know I've sold equipment over the past couple of years to people who I'm getting back into it after 15 years, that sort of thing. So it's as much as I like to say every DJ is full of their own ego to the point they're puking. I don't know if it's that way. A lot of them just love it. It's like I always talk about DJing. Like for guys that are like old, like John and I, sorry to throw you under the bus, John. When we were growing up, everybody wanted to be a guitarist. You want to be a guitarist, you want to be that rock star.
Yep.
And no matter whether you played in a band or tried to play in a band or whatever, that's kind of what I think DJing is to a lot of people. A chance to get out and do some stuff, maybe make a little extra cash. They love the idea of it, love being a part of the scene, but it isn't their full, consistent everything. They have other things that they do, even though they'll love it or stop if something's on TV or on in internet. But I think the people who identify that is not as many, at least in my opinion, not as many as you think.
Yeah, that's surprising. I kind of figured with some of the people who have been at that higher level that would have become such a major part of their life that when it came time to step away, it would have been very difficult and they would have struggled.
What I see the struggle is the opposite, to where they're still in it and not as successful as they think they should have been, or they're not recognized. I've been doing this for 30 years. People need to recognize. And those are the bitter ones. Those are the ones that, I look at and go, I want to do anything but be them. Mm-hmm. That's what I think I see a lot of people that haven't quit and lost their identities. People are in it and don't have the fame they think they deserve. And they go ballistic to everybody who gets any sort of success ahead of them.
So let's
even their friends. I've had it happen to me 2 or 3 times. I've had success with something, and I've had a DJ friend just literally call me up, swearing at me like I'm a horrible person because I should tell them that they should hire him instead of me. So
that might be with a person that really we're kind of going to be hitting, is that person who's been doing it for 30 years, and their whole life is so wrapped up into it that they are offended, they are jealous of anyone else who's in the world, because that's the beginning and end for them, I think, is their DJ career, DJ ability, or DJ business. And the day that they step away, I mean, is that person, have they defined themselves so much that the day they step away is like there's, some of the people are single and don't have any family and don't have anything, and
all of these mentions I mentioned are family people.
Okay, so
some of them with day jobs even.
Okay, so that even then, so they do have some other. It isn't just
the DJ. It's how can I describe this? It's a tough thing to describe because you see a person who has put their heart and soul into something, and that's where I think it gets lost, is that you don't see the separation. Because it's one of the things I tell young DJs. I said, your absolute best day of DJing does not define you any more than your absolute worst day of DJing defines you. That is not your worth. Almost none of the stuff you do as a DJ is your worth. What you do for your significant other, your children, your friends, that's your worth to this world. The other stuff you do for fun and money, like you said, John. And if you get that separation to where I love doing this, I do identify as that, but that's not everything, you're going to successfully move through life without becoming bitter. But if you can't detach your identity of worth, the worth part of it, then that's where it hurts more than just losing the identity of I'm a DJ.
Yeah, very true.
One of the things I think that also, for some of us, we build our business. Right. So whether your business is you singly going out and doing events in some place, or whether your business is a company that you've built and possibly with multi-op and that kind of thing, you build this. And so this becomes, for some people, their baby. You know what I mean? Like they got it from the start and they saw it through the growth and everything else. And again, it becomes to this point when you step away. I mean, think of those of you that are parents of kids that have now gone on to college. When they step out of the house and they're going away, like I still remember my dad when I went away to college. Like my dad grabbed a hold of me like I've never felt before, and it's not that I was gone. I was coming back on breaks, but it was still that idea of leaving. And I think sometimes for some of us that, because of how we've grown it, I mean, it's not a person, but it feels like it sometimes, we had that absence. We had that pit, when it's gone.
Sure.
And hopefully,
I just thought instead of empty nest syndrome, it's empty booth syndrome.
There you go.
Very much so. Yeah.
But hopefully this is, hopefully this also is you're choosing to do this, right? You choose to help your child go along. You choose to step out of this. I think for some of us, we would really have that hard time if suddenly we would just, and I think, as MJ said, you think of some of those people that, are bitter because they're not getting events. They're bitter because they don't have things. That's your business gets taken away from you. Stepping away, you want to have pride in it, but you also want to be like, it's gone.
I think the idea that stepping away, even though, like we watched Randy Bartlett as an example, retire and work his way to getting out of the industry with doing shows, and then working his way out of, he was with us for a couple of years doing content, but in his Facebook group, but he's worked his way out of that, kind of gradually stepping away. And it helped him to redefine himself as a DIY house repair guy to a point, and I say that because he made it very known, if you follow Randy, that he's using a screwdriver wasn't something he would have done before a couple of years ago. Where Randy found a different outlet, a different goal, series of goals, however you want to look at that, but it gave him, he had something, and he was able to define his worth using MJ's thoughts on the things he could do around the house and the things he could do to build and repair and remodel his cabin that he was working on. And I just wonder if, as DJs are looking at it in a situation where it's taken away, in essence, and the business goes away and your skill set, whatever drives people away, if there can be a goal that can replace that in your life, or if it's just going to become that nagging, bitter person for the rest of their lives, or if you get to a situation where you go out on your own terms, like Dave Tournier is talking about doing, then it's easier to change your goals and to develop a worth in a different area for the good of society or the betterment of your family, whatever that may be.
I think you have to really kind of find something that you like to do. For a lot of us, whether this is part for the music collection, for the cue points, like all the things that we do, of course, there needs to be something that kind of helps fill that gap. And whether that's a bunch of things, whether that's whether that's different hobbies you want to pick up, whether it's Randy's situation of reconstructing a cabin from the ground, at least that's the way it sounds like some days. Whatever happens to be the case there, I think it's important for you to be able to try and fill it with something. Otherwise, you kind of go, you had this emptiness. Go ahead, MJ, say it.
You don't know what I'm going to say.
I don't, but I know you're going to say something.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm wondering whether this fits in here now or later, kind of what we had talked about before the show. Or you wasn't sure which way I was going to go with that?
Yeah, put it now. It's okay.
All right. So 2020 was a great year for me. And I know I don't mean to disrespect anybody that lost anyone during that time. That's not why I'm saying that. But it helped me recenter and lay a foundation of what's important to me. And more importantly, I think it more helped me redefine what's important to me. And I do have a book coming out, and I swear it. I know I say it a lot, but honestly, it's coming. I have an album coming out next Tuesday. I'm re-releasing an old album from 20 years ago that comes out next Tuesday. So I'm busy on all these things, but one of the things that I realized, and I've kind of really defined it better, I was telling Dan and John that over the past 2 years, is that I don't plan on retiring. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to DJ forever, but I am not going to take the mindset of quitting, because everything I do, to some level, I love doing.
Sure.
So I'm not looking at my life and going, in 10 or 15 years, I'm going to walk away from the DJ business. I'm maybe DJ totally different things, or maybe DJ, fundraisers, or what. It doesn't even matter.
You'll become the polka guy.
I'm going to say no to that.
Okay, well, Richie.
Plus, it pays a lot and has
no
really pretty chicks. I'm not going to argue about that.
I did say the old folks home.
Yeah, in 15 years,
We'll be younger than you.
They might be looking pretty...
Younger than me. That's funny. But I really, like I said, I don't plan on retiring. So I'm looking at my life, like I said, that as I go on forward, like you said, Dan, filling it with things. I heard a guy one time who was a, what do you call that? A bull rider. And he lived for bull riding and ended up getting injured to the point where he couldn't ride anymore.
Sure.
And somebody asked him, what are you going to do now? And his literal words were, I guess I'll just have to find something else I love. And it was so calm and just like it was nothing to him, but I think he had a good perspective for all of us, is that you've got to keep busy, find things you love, do the same things in a different way, maybe. But I don't know Randy's life, so I don't know what to the level he was doing stuff, but I guarantee beyond that cabin, he's still doing creative stuff. Because that my whole book, the reason I brought up the book was the whole book is about the fact of people who have dodged their creativeness or had to walk away because of a certain situation, but that creativeness still nags them because it's a part of you. So you have to find a release. So if Randy's release of creativity is this cabin, he's still in the same mindset, but doing something different. And that's what I'm looking at as I move forward, is not the quitting, but I'm just going to move. And if my move is with music, it's going to be with music. If it's with words, it's going to be with words. If it's a mix of both, if it's something different, I don't know. But I'm not going to cut it out of my life. I'm not going to cut anything out of my life until, if it goes away, it goes away. So that's my mindset. And I know it's different. And Dan at the beginning, because he's like, I don't know if you're going to say you're going to quit now or you're never going to quit. I could see, I would believe either one. And it's kind of a little bit of both, because I'm looking at my life going, what I'm doing now is, again, one of the key things my sister pointed out about the book is that I'm not writing it from a point of, I'm a person who's super successful, this is how you become me. It's, no, I'm making an average living like everyone else, where before in my life, I was like, I have to make it so that I can do all this stuff. I've got to make it rich. I've got to make it famous so I can do all this stuff. Well, I was already doing all this stuff. So why not just do all this stuff? Mm-hmm. So I went from a chase to a do. And I think that's a mindset as you get older. Instead of looking at that retirement date, just in the Chinese culture, 60 is a pivot point. They don't call it an ending, a retirement. It's a switch, a new thing. And that's what I think would be the best for anybody talking about getting out of the business. If you love it, do it to the level that you can still love it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Oh, it certainly does. And I think part of it, as you're talking about the different things you're doing, is that there's a level of diversity in that, which is another thing that came out of 2020, learning that we need to be more diverse than just what we're doing. And Rocky mentioned it up here, that all you have is that business, and you're wholly wrapped around that business, and that's you and you are it. Yeah, that is a very sad thing. Whereas if you have family, if you have friends, you've developed relationships, you're working, volunteering, doing things, you've got life. You have more options, and you have less anxiety when it comes to that time where you start looking and saying, "Gosh, I'm not as young as I used to be. These speakers aren't moving themselves like they used to for some reason." And you need to start making some of those hard choices and moving on. It's a lot easier if you've got those other interests, rather than to have poured all of your eggs into one basket and all of a sudden the basket is gone, whether you had to let it go or it was taken from you. And then what do you do?
You had talked about the kids. Dan, you can jump on this right after if you want. But you had talked about, empty nest syndrome. And that's what happens is parents don't know how to be a couple, and they were being parents. And when they stopped being parents, they spent so much time being parents, they forgot how to be a couple. So when the kids leave, a lot of marriages fall apart because they just don't know what to do, because it was an all or nothing kind of thing instead of both things. Mm-hmm. And that's the same way with a business, that you see what you do and find what underlying in that drives you to it. Is it the people? Like Dan, I can see Dan, he likes being around the people, so he could do anything where he's working with people and stuff like that. And I think that would fulfill that in him. You just have to find what drives you in that. Mine is creativity.
And Mikey in the chat, I think this was way back earlier when we first started talking about Dave Tournier. He mentioned, he found it difficult because of the idea of the love of the music. Like, if you love music and you love playing music, you will want to do that. And so anybody who does the opposite of that seems to kind of go into, like, it seems weird to somebody, right? Like, if that's the reason why I do this, and MJ, you're talking about stepping away, like, that seems absurd to me. And so I totally understand where he's coming from with that. The other thing that I think that becomes difficult in a certain way, when we do events, and I'll speak to mine. I get a high off of, for lack of better terms, puppet mastery, right? Like you play music and they dance, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right.
Dance,
So like
my.
that feeling, maybe not puppet mastery, but you get the idea, right? So the when you're doing that and you get that energy, you feel that, like, I think in some aspects it's very hard to replicate that in other fields, right? It's very hard to feel that energy coming from somebody else when you're no longer playing to them, right? You can get that accolades from, from the volunteer. You can get the, hey, thank you very much, we really appreciate you. You can get all that kind of stuff, but you don't quite get the same type of back and forth that you would get when you're DJing. And so I think for some people also, the idea of stepping away, not saying that I need that, but I really like it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so to step away, to not suddenly not have that, like that was like, I still remember I got into DJing through radio in high school. And there's kind of an adage among radio guys, which is you can't leave. Like you make horrible money as radio DJs unless you go national, right? So, but the problem is they don't want to leave the business because they catch the bug, right? And so for some people, and that, like for me, when I finally got out of radio, it was when I suddenly got more into mobile, and I took my bug from here and put it over there.
Sure.
And so I do see where some people would have that difficulty with that emotional high energy being stripped away.
What if, Dan, you get to a point in life where you don't have to do the weddings for money,
I'm there now.
but you love doing them?
That's where I'm at now.
What could you do differently, but still keep that into a position where you can manage it physically and all that as you age? That's what you look at. Like, what can I do? I don't have to go out on tour as a rock star,
Right.
but I can play on the weekends. Figure out what works for you. That I think is the most important thing, is finding that where you don't walk away, but you still do what you love in a way that doesn't require you to make that paycheck. Where you're just like, I really love this, I'm gonna go have some fun, sort of mentality.
Yeah.
Could you find places in the world to do that like that?
Well, I'm sure there's anything and everything. I mean, whether it's, there's nonprofits that hit people up nonstop, right and left. There would be the perfect example of ways to give back in a quality of group that would probably love you endlessly for what you're doing. And yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about the money aspect, and they would be very happy that you didn't have to worry about the money aspect. Um, I think in the same respect, though, at some point, like with what I'm talking about, at some point you're going to decide, not everybody again, but you're going to get this feeling like I need to step away, right? The last thing I think any of us want to do is be the DJ who's hanging on just because they're hanging on, right? The idea of, I win the Super Bowl, and then I retire, right? I go out on top. So I'm sorry, I used a sports analogy, MJ. I'm sorry.
I played a buttload of sports. All right. Anytime you want to go one-on-one on any sport, let's do this.
Video
Go
games
ahead.
don't count.
What was that?
Video games don't count. In case you didn't hear it, I just wanted to help you with that one. Video games don't count.
Anytime, Daniel.
I know. I kid because I do know you
Okay,
showed.
let's take.
I've seen you showed us proof that you have played in it, but I'd like to throw that out anyway.
No, but let's take a look at that. Why couldn't you find a spot in the DJ world where you're DJing because you love DJing? What maybe let's say you helped a younger DJ where you just became, you say, hey, throw me $50, I'll come and they do all the heavy lifting and you still get to be a part of it. I mean, there's no reason that we're not professionals that have an end date. Okay. We're not like the sports analogy. So why not? If you're still able to perform the task, why not?
Because I think at some point we've got to weigh that decision. And that's where I'm saying, like, this is the kind of where I'm talking about with this, the idea of choosing to step away at a certain spot and then what happens next. Not I have an end date, so I've got to be out of the business at this point, and now I'm missing out. But at some point, so case in point, I have a neighbor. I'm not positive, but I believe he's choosing to retire from his DJ business at the same time he decides to retire from teaching. All right. And part of the reason for that, and Keith, if I'm wrong, I apologize. Maybe you're younger than I thought. But with that is the idea that you choose to retire from this. So I'm going to retire from this. And now I'm going to have that free time to devote to traveling with my wife, whatever might happen to be the case. At some point, this is where I'm talking about this idea that if you're choosing to step away, what are you going to deal with emotionally? Again, like MJ said, we don't have an ending. So if you want to be the viral guy from a few years ago who was like 85, he's in the club, doing this, and they're paying you for it because you love what you're doing. Awesome. But if you're choosing to step away at some point, what are you going to be worrying about? What are you going to conflict with within yourself?
Yeah. I have a friend here in the city. He's in his 70s. He's officially retired, been DJing since the days of disco. And he DJs out more now than most people do who chase this dream with all their heart. But he does different things. He does once a month the county wine mixer, where he just plays background music. He DJs at a place where he does soul and funk, something different at a different place every once a week. He does his the neighborhood farmers market. He plays music for farmers market to the point where people like him there so much they got him a fully solar panel powered setup that he comes in and doesn't have to be plugged into anything. So he finds these outlets, and then they'll do like a an old club from like the 80s. Remember, we're going to do a such and such reunion, and he'll spin those. And that's what I'm saying is that if you love it that much, there's no reason to even think about stopping. Just change it a little. Do what you love. No, if you, again, with the speakers, John, 100%. We had a discussion the other night, some of us, about a girl DJ that I know. She's getting older, and she loved the fact that they had the speakers that had the power up.
Yep.
Then she discovered the array systems where all you do is click them in place, and that became the next cool thing that she liked. Mm-hmm. And that's, you try to find stuff like that. If you love it, there's 1,000 things you can do. Just, that's why I say I don't plan on retiring. I don't even see myself going, I'm going to just whatever.
One of you mentioned seasons, and I think that's a big part for a lot, and even some of the folks that are in the chat room tonight that I recognize some names, is I think that the thing that motivated you is going to change throughout the seasons of your DJ career. Dan had mentioned that having the passion, getting those people out there, and dance, My Little Puppets dance type of thing, was a driver for him. And I think at one time that was probably a driver for myself also, that getting out there and having a crowd that goes crazy and are screaming from song to song and singing along. There was that excitement and motivation. I think it gets to a point though that can change, not for everyone, but for some people that's no longer a driver for us, because you've got other interests that passion has dwindled there maybe, or that passion has moved to other areas. So then you get to the point of, now am I doing it just because of a paycheck? And you've got to ask and answer those questions, because in some cases, I know many DJs who are out there doing it, and they're kind of miserable. I mean, they'll enjoy it, but they don't enjoy it like they did. And I mean, as Mark mentioned up above, he's ready. He can't wait to get out of the DJ world, but he wants to stay in the entertainment industry. And that, I get that wholeheartedly, but it's that motivation is something a person really has to look at and say, why am I there? Why am I still doing this? Am I doing it because I love it? Or is it because it's, an easy way to make money as far as it is? Or is it one of those things that I've just done it so long that I just haven't thought of what life is without it? And maybe it's one of those things that a person needs to see. Is there a DJ John that's no longer DJ John? It's now just John doing something else type of situation.
I think it's also,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's also important for us that if you are going to get out, or you decide to get out from the profession side of it, right? So you're still going to play, you're still going to, maybe you'll stream, right? That's another way you can still play and not have to worry about, like, you can set up in your house and you don't have to worry about like lugging equipment around, right? So, but I think it's important that if you decide that you're going to get out, that you actually have a legitimate plan on getting out. All right. So I was actually talking with my cousin this afternoon, new cousin. Like, well, I shouldn't say new cousin. He's been my cousin for years. I just didn't know it. But he's a DJ down in Orlando, and we got talking, and he's talked about how he's kind of like edging towards this other field. Like he's doing more home and audio type installation type of things for some people and whatnot. And he's had that for a while, but he's kind of like trying to phase out of his DJ business to more of doing that, right? But the problem is every time he tries and goes more in that direction, he gets pulled right back for somebody that wants him for an event and is willing to pay him for it. And it's one of those things where, that can become very, I almost feel like that can be more taxing on you than anything else, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm going to get out. Oh, they're pulling me back. Now if that pullback is once a month, then probably not as taxing. But if you're out of it for 6 months and then you got to pull back and it's like, oh, now I've got to reintroduce myself to what exactly is the greatest music to play. What is, all those other nuances of what we do. It can be hard. It can be very hard on you too. So I think it's important for you to have a plan and what, very much like Randy did. This is it. Like, I'm not going past this date. And he still kind of, I think, got pulled back once or twice. But then he was like, "This is it." And once he got to that, I think like the second or third time,
he sold his gear
to it.
Yep, he sold the gear and sent it down the road.
Yeah.
What do you say? What's your chances, John, that he'll come back to do something for fun on somebody else's equipment?
I think fairly unlikely. Because his big part of it was being an MC, and yes, he would play music and such. But
okay,
I think Randy and even like myself, if I were to walk away from the DJ industry, as I look at it, what part would I miss the most from it?
Us, Dan
it would be the friends that I've made in the industry. Obviously, are going to be the biggest part I would miss. I wouldn't miss going out and doing events. I wouldn't miss the crowds. I wouldn't miss the late nights and such. And part of it is that the things that motivated me in the past to get me excited to go do these things, I've found working towards goals and working towards things, especially in the last 2 years where I've been, really kind of looking at the health side of things and the fitness side and spending more time with that. And you can see improvements and you can see growth and you can see a progress. You can have a goal. You can work towards that goal. Then you can go and set another goal and work towards that. Those are the types of things you really can't do in the DJ industry. Yes, you can set goals for sales. You can set goals for that. But overall, it's not the same. It's not where you can, we all know that we're going to have a bad gig. And yes, you can have a bad day running or whatever. I get that. And injuries will pop up and things. But it just doesn't inspire me like it used to. So it gets to the point now, it's like, okay, where does the motivation, where do I get that passion and that excitement in my life? And it's just not in the DJ world anymore from my standpoint. I'm good at what I do. This past weekend, I had the wedding and did the thing, and I had the people who came up and they're like, "Yeah, we're hiring you for our wedding," and it's like, "Yeah, great. Just I don't know how long I'll be doing this anymore. I might decide in 2 weeks that I'm going to pull the plug. It won't, but you don't know where that is. I mean, that we flash back to 2020. A lot of our brethren decided that, hey, wow, this kind of sucks. I can't make any money doing that, and they walked away and they've never come back. And I can see that being a thing because of that. What motivated them at one time probably just doesn't do it anymore.
I think a way to look at this is that in your mind, not driven by money, not driven by fame, not driven by anything, what level of busy does your brain like to be? And you have to fill that after you walk away from that thing that you're walking away from, because that emptiness of not having something to work on will drive your brain crazy. You will lose health. You will lose mindset. You will lose everything. So like Dan said, if you do have an ending point picked, keep in mind how busy you like to do things, whatever it is. Like for me, the creation side of it is a lot of it. And that's why that even if I never needed to make money, I was the other day imagining, what would I do if I didn't need to do all that? Mm-hmm. I would take on bigger creative projects, like bigger art things and stuff, just because I'd be like, okay, my brain wants to work on this.
Sure.
And it has nothing to do with that. So and it can be family, it can be anything that fills your mind with that, but keeping busy. A friend of mine, his wife, an older gentleman, I've known his kids for years. His wife passed away, and I asked his son the other day, how's he doing? And he said the grandkids are keeping him real busy, and that is his focus right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing, you just need to have something that fills that spot. Otherwise, you will spiral and crash. Like Randy's cabin is a perfect example. I've had friends who rebuilt cars and they called it their therapy to get over a bad situation in life because it kept their minds and hands busy rebuilding a car. So you just have to find, in my opinion, just my opinion. I think if you're able to find that thing for your brain and stuff, you're going to be good.
And I think that thing it can't be. You can't overlook that. And I was actually talking to a local person here whose husband passed away a few years ago, and he was getting to the point. I think he was like 4 or 5 years from retirement. And as he was getting closer to retirement, he didn't have that next thing to look forward to, and he was starting to lament the fact that he was going to have to be retiring because of age and health situations, and he never made it to retirement. Another gentleman over down the road that was working at my parents' place. He also was trying to figure out some retirement things at the last minute, and he didn't really have that next thing, and it became tough to continue to take care of himself and do this and do that, and over time in that the 3 years, his health had deteriorated to the point where he died. It's not having that, not being that diversity of interests or diversity of passions and motivations can be very deadly. And we all know stories of people who retired, and Lori's got 8 obituaries, and I think 3 of them are people who retired recently. And it wasn't because of COVID. It was just because they got bored and there was nothing to do, and life was over for them.
William Shatner has said he never plans on retiring. He went to space a while back. You know how old he was when he went to space? 90. He's in his 90s now, and that's his mindset. He goes, I'm going to do stuff maybe way different than I used to, but I don't plan on retiring. And it's the mindset of keeping moving forward. It can be anything, but just you can't just go, well, I'm going to sit on the back porch and sip margaritas or whatever, because that's only going to last a short time. The same way if you have money as your motivator. Money is only going to motivate you for a short time, and then you're just going to get tired. Fame will only motivate you for a short time, and then you'll get tired. But you have to find that thing. I want to, because Dan was talking, I want to let him have time because we're getting close to the end. But I just want to encourage you, no matter where you are in life right now, start thinking about that. I don't care how young you are. Take some time, take a breath, look around you, your family, friends, look at things, and don't be afraid to let that stuff in your life a little bit, because you don't know what that can lead to for you to just have a better what's the word I'm looking for? Quality of living through just being mentally happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a weird thing that little things like that can do to, like John said, to have a purpose, to have something to look forward to is immensely powerful. I'm done now.
I think a lot of us,
I guess
thanks. Okay. Huey Lewis. I need a second one. All right. So I think for a lot of us, though, if we stop for a second and think back to the time that we don't want to talk about, right? 2020. Okay. When there was this shutdown going on and we could not do our job, what were the things that you did to fill your time? Like, I think a lot of us, we kind of question about what we might have to look forward to. But if anything that was good came out of that at that time period, it was, what did you do? What did you find yourself to occupy yourself? Now, granted, for some of us, maybe our hobby is playing golf, or maybe our hobby is, doing something at a place that was shut down. And so therefore you're like, well, I couldn't do that during that time. Okay, that's different. But if you found something that you really enjoyed at the time when you couldn't do what you currently enjoy, you have an opportunity to have something to look forward to. Start thinking about those moments to maybe use as a sounding board for possible future hobbies or retirement, or just keeping that mind busy, exactly as MJ said.
That's what my book's about, was me realizing that I kept getting up each day doing the exact same thing aside from going out and DJing. I was creative in some way every single day, and I realized that all the years of chasing fame and fortune, I was just trying to continue to be. I just wanted more opportunities to be creative without a day job. I didn't want things to interrupt my creativity, So that's what I had realized. So if you can, like Dan says, if you can find that, hunt it down. It's so worth when you find that thing. It's so valuable.
As an example of someone who found that thing today, there was one of the obituaries was from a 90-year-old, and he retired when he was 60-something. So he spent almost 30 years working on his love, and his love was clocks. And he would buy clocks, find them old clocks, repair them, and I think that they said he had over 600 clocks that he had fixed and repaired and had on display at his place. But he found his passion, and there was always another clock there, and he enjoyed working on them right up into the point that he passed away. So it can be a variety of different things that we have as the next phase, whether it's, at 30 years old and going to a different job, as some of the people MJ had talked about at the beginning of the show, or, we're getting to that point where we just physically can't DJ, or our passion for DJing is gone and we move on to something else. It's just, somebody, I think Aaron mentioned, looking forward to doing nothing when he retires. Yeah, that'll be the first month. And then month 2, you're going to be like, okay, now what? You can only play golf so many days, and you can only do so many things for so long, and you need to have.
There are so many people that retired that I can't tell you that I know that went to then work for their kids like a month later, because they couldn't stand sitting at home. So I went to go help. I'm just helping my son out for 2-3 days a week, and it ends up being 5 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a reason why you have a lot of older people who end up being like the greeter at Walmart, the local librarian, things like that, because they're not jobs that really require a lot of work, but it's skill sets that they can do, and people want to do it, and they're like, yeah, let me fill my time with this. So I think it's valuable to find those pieces of some sort.
Mm-hmm. That it is. So MJ, you mentioned, of course, if you were to step back, you've got the creative things, and you would still want to have a creative outlet if you stepped away from the industry. Do you think you would miss the DJ industry if you stepped away from it? If you found other creative outlets, such as writing children's books?
It's I was going to say earlier when I started laughing, I was going to say I'm going to DJ till the day I can no longer say no. I'm not playing country music.
Yeah, when country music starts to sound good, MJ will be retiring.
There you go. It's odd because as I'm releasing this album next week, I look back at the days when I was a vocal singer, and I absolutely love singing. It is such a release to me that I can't begin to tell you. It's like taking a deep breath when you really need a deep breath. That's what it's like to me. But as I aged, the stuff I was doing, I didn't fit into that world anymore. So I knew, like we talk about walking away, I knew that wasn't where I was going to be. I would have to kind of reinvent the music that I did and everything to keep doing that. DJing was just always something that was there. So looking back at singing, I could say the same thing and look back at DJing. There'll be a part of me that wants to keep doing it. I'll just have to find a way maybe to do it differently. I'm probably going to, like I said, singing. I could see myself getting back to singing somehow, somewhere for fun. Mm-hmm. I don't know, because it's just, I would DJ somehow.
Sure.
I would figure out a way to do it. Just like I said, with everything else that I'm viewing in life and looking at these things, you would miss some stuff, but you're like, well, I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no reason not to. If I enjoy it, I'm going to do it. Screw everybody else. I don't care. like for real. Like, I would find ways. I would tell people, hey, can I come be your opening set this weekend? You don't have to pay me. People would jump at having someone opening set for free.
You can, but it'll be Jello time when you're doing that, and then after that, it will be.
They're like, can you stay an extra hour? No way, I'm in bed soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
there's a thing in this town that does an in bed by 10 party. That's a whole industry right there for people that the dance is over at 9 p.m.
I'm up for that one.
So you could find anything, and I don't know if there's parts of DJing I want to walk away from because I hate every week when I download music, I'm putting money in the pockets of artists that I wish would fail. There's so much. That's one of my hated parts of DJing is the music that I have to download and play, and carrying equipment. I don't like that. So I'd figure out something, but I guarantee I would miss it. So I would have to do something. So yeah.
Dan, how about yourself? If you stop DJing, could you stop DJing cold turkey basically and be good with it?
I don't think I could.
That word cold turkey, you just threw me there.
No, I don't think I could. I say that, but as MJ was talking, I think about when I stepped away from the bar scene, right? And I almost said the club scene, but I know better because MJ's here.
We've covered
when I
that.
stepped away from the bar scene, and I got to a point, and a couple of, at first it was hard. It was like I kind of missed it. A couple of years later, then I'm like, you know what? I don't miss dealing with the drunk people anymore. Like that was the pain in the butt. So, and when I stepped away from radio, it was hard. So, but I have the mobile side, and so that would be my piece. I don't know at this point where I'm at what I would do to still have that DJ-esque piece that I would have and not DJ. Right. Because when I stopped doing the bar, when I stopped doing radio, I still had the bar club and I still had my mobile. When I stepped away from the bar scene, I still had my mobile. When I step away from the mobile, yeah, I know there's other things I can do, like we talked about, but I don't know if that would be enough.
Interesting.
I think that nobody knows. You just kind of have to move as it goes, because that's where, like I said, past 2 years, I'm looking at my life and going, this is different, but this is okay. And I agree with you. You can only take drunk 20-somethings so long. And then they make no sense even when you know they don't make any sense, but you love them because they go, oh, I love this song. And you feel their energy, and that energy is so addictive. But you just have to find, like I said, you will, if you look for it, you will find it. And that's what I kind of want to encourage you. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in 10 years because I didn't think I would be here 10 years ago. But I'm here, and it's not horrible. Even though I have to continually hear comments about an average band.
San Francisco.
From San Francisco, yeah. So up next, in just about 8 minutes, Howie's getting the chill room together, DJNTV.com/chill. You can bounce out there and hang out. They're going to do a little recording for the first 20 minutes or so. So if you're part of the show, camera and things are on. Otherwise, kind of hang out in the background. And then once they're done recording, then you'll open it up to have a gab session for the evening. And then tomorrow night, we'll be streaming one of the shows at 9 o'clock Eastern from last week or the week before, whichever. I don't know which one we have up. I think last week's. And then at 10 o'clock Eastern, Brian and Jay and Howie will be doing the Tuesday night music show in the chill room. Again, DJNTV.com/chill. You can pop out there and catch that recording and hang out time. It's a great time to talk music and learn about some parts of the music industry that many of us don't know about, that those three guys have either experienced or have been involved with or know way more than the average person about. So it gets to be kind of a fun time. Last week's virtual expo, by the way, DJNTV.com/virtual expo. That's where we put those every week, and it's going to be there. So if you DJNTV.com/virtual expo, you can go there and catch last week's show where we talked about burnout and having a lot of people share their thoughts and tips of how they avoid burnout. It was a great show, so if you get a chance, check that out.
And for those of you that are maybe thinking about what could I possibly do, there was also some things that people use to not just avoid burnout, but to kind of keep their minds busy and to kind of help them. So that, as we're thinking also long term, you might be able to pick up a new hobby that you may want to try and see if it's something you like.
Yes. Like listening to San Francisco-based bands. Great hobby. Great hobby. I suppose we need to go.
Take us home, please.
So on that note, thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join us. We are very appreciative of what you do, because without you guys, then we would just be three of us like talking on a camera and it wouldn't have the same impact. But again, thank you very much. Have yourself a great night. Don't forget about Howie in the chill room, and we'll see you next week.
Everybody.
Bye.